here, but since you asked me, I am 100% in favor of the having the minimum wage for tip workers be the same as the base minimum wage for a McDonald's employee, or an employee who's in the dollar store, or an employee who's in any other corner store. And that's my view. And I don't think that, and let me say this, the 2017 Department of Employment Services, DC Department of Employment Services report said that tipped workers in the District of Columbia are mainly women and people of color, and they are the poorest of the workers in the District of Columbia. And so I'm not including bartenders, managers, and owners, because they have a much higher wage. But I think that to survive on the poverty of other workers, I'm really not for that. And 32BJ of SEIU is a supporter of the better restaurants. And I in California and in like several other states total, the tipped wage is the minimum wage for those jurisdictions, directly paid to the workers, and they get tips. And the record is that the workers and the restaurants are doing okay. Because there's seven equal, what they call equal wage states. I've never represented tip workers. I represented workers for nearly 35 years, but I cannot see never mind. I mean,
I'm not advocating on one side or the other. I just know that this is one of your areas of expertise, and we touched on it. So I just wanted to give you a moment to sort of articulate the specific issues at hand here, because I'm by no means an expert on that as well. So
yeah, it may be in these times. I mean, so many people are suffering in these times, but there are programs for small businesses. And I was listening to the DEMPED performance oversight hearing. I was there because I testified, but I also listened throughout the hearing. And the deputy mayor for planning and economic development was talking about programs for small businesses because of the COVID. And I think that's good too, but I don't think the one set of group of people should be poor and the other okay. And I think if you look at the last report from the DC Office of Employment Services, it's really a problem. And the big thing out of that report was that the DC restaurant industry is the highest wage theft industry in the city. So, and what I mean by that is, a lot of times people don't get their tips. A lot of times people are doing non-tipped work, not tip producing work that they should get the $15, what is $15, 20 cents minimum, and they do not. There was just a settlement last year of the farmers restaurant group. You've heard of, they have a couple restaurants in the city, but it's a restaurant group that's around the area. I think the one in the city is 21st and Pennsylvania Avenue, because before I retired, the union, the legal staff would go down there for some events. They settled because they were cheating workers out of their tips and not paying the regular minimum wage when they were doing non-tipped work, and they were cheating them out of sick leave. So I think
I don't want to get us too far off track, and I don't want to call anybody out specifically, but I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, the problem is it's a complex system, so it's kind of hard to cheat. I mean, I've looked at studies from the Department of Labor because in 2018, since I never represented tip workers, I read many studies on it to find out what it was. And basically, the Department of Labor said it's a very complicated system to implement, and that's why it's so easy to cheat and hard for people who are not unionized. They're not going to speak up because if they speak up, they'll be gone.
Yeah. No, well, yeah, that's a longer
I
conversation.
didn't want to get on a soapbox, but you asked me.
No, I started it. That's fine. No, but I'm looking at number 7 on the agenda. That's community comments. So do we have community comments that?
Well, the commissioner announcements, I just want to announce, we still have a commissioner announcement. I'm sorry I took so long for that, but DCRA performance oversight hearing is February 24th. If people have any issues that they'd like to raise with respect to regulating developers' construction to maintain safe building practices in our ANC, regulating housing providers to maintain habitable apartments, and regulating commercial properties to ensure safe business practices, you have an opportunity to testify before Chairman Mendelson's Committee of the Whole, and you have to register 2 days before the February 24th hearing. So basically at the beginning of the week. If you want information on that, I can add that to the chat. And I think Commissioner Bouquet wanted to talk about the DCPS lottery.
Yes, thank you, Chair Bowser. The My School DC lottery is DCPS and public charter schools. The next deadline is March 1st for pre-K 3 through 8th grade. So if you have a child that is going to be entering any of those grades, please make sure that you get your lottery application in by the March 1st deadline. The website is myschooldc.org. It is an online only application process. And they have a hotline to support Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, which is 202-888-6336. And I'll go ahead and add that to the chat. For those that may have missed the high school application deadline of February 1st, it is now the post-lottery application period for high school. So you can still submit an application, but it would be considered after the fact. The reason this is important, particularly for pre-K 3, is that even if you're interested in enrolling your child at their in-boundary DCPS public school, the student still requires a My School DC lottery application. So make sure to get those in, particularly if you have a pre-K 3 or pre-K 4 child, and not to miss the deadline. Happy to answer any questions about that later if folks have them.
Yes, and Chair Bowser, if I could just make 1 or 2 announcements. So I just put the information in the chat, but I think it was about a week or so ago, the DC Board of Elections said that all DC registered voters will automatically be getting mail-in ballots for the June 21st primary. And the 2 closest mail-in Dropbox locations to ANC 4D are up at the MPD 4th District headquarters north of Missouri Avenue and the Petworth Library. So those are the 2 closest ones to our area, which is kind of far. So the DC Board of Elections is accepting comments and suggestions on additional locations to have the Dropboxes be located. The deadline to submit the comment is this Friday, February 18th. So I put a link in the chat if you want to politely ask them to include an additional Dropbox in our neighborhood to make it more convenient for people. The location I've suggested is Truesdale Elementary because that has been a polling place historically and is fairly centrally located for our ANC area. So just want folks to be aware of that. And then also last month, there was another crash at the intersection of Farragut Street and Illinois Avenue Northwest in my S&D, and we finally got DDOT to initiate a 4-way stop at that intersection, which residents have been asking for years. It was the 4th crash in about 4 months at that same intersection. So if you want to submit comments to DDOT expressing your support for the always stop. You can do that by March 8th, and I'll put it in the chat, the email address you can send that to. And then just the last thing, also DDOT related. Unfortunately, 2 days ago, a Truesdale student was hit by a driver in the morning. And he, I believe, suffered a fractured arm. The next day, which was yesterday, DDOT approved a bunch of safety measures all around the school, including speed humps, including making the intersections at 7th and 8th Street and Jefferson always stops, which is something I had requested several months ago and DDOT originally rejected. And also closing off part of 9th Street Northwest between Illinois and Ingraham Streets to all vehicular traffic. So DDOT's going to be doing that over the next couple of months. But I just wanted folks to be aware of those changes coming up. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you. Now we'll move to community comments. And you have any community member would like to make a comment, please, should they, Commissioner Noble, should they unmute themselves, or will you unmute them?
They can unmute themselves, and if you're dialing in by telephone, you can dial *6 to unmute yourself.
Okay, so we encourage you to give any comment, question, or idea you have to with regard to our community and what you would like us to do. No comments? While people are composing what they may want to say, I just want to say that next week I'm meeting with the DC Commission on the Arts and the Humanities, and we're going to talk about what other than the structure at 5th and Kennedy Streets could go there. I've already asked the people in my single member district if they have any suggestions that I would convey them. And so if anyone here in attendance or someone you know has a suggestion, I'll convey that as well.
Sure, Bowser, I think that's fantastic, and I'll jump in as well. I had a meeting with the director of DDOT, I think 2 Fridays ago, and this particular issue relates to the intersection at Delafield and 9th Street. And we had talked about this in meetings in the past, and they are not going to install a 4-way stop sign. And what happened was, when the residents there requested a traffic safety assessment, they said, okay, that's great. We can do a 2-way stop sign, but not a 4-way stop sign. But in the meantime, we're going to take these parking spots, because if it's a 2-way stop sign, we need to have visibility going each way. And so I just thought that was absurd. And I met with, Director Lott a couple of weeks ago, and that I sort of explained that that's not what the community had asked for, and they held firm. So I'm just going to sort of vent in the community comment section here. I'm just going to vent my own frustration with DDOT, and that they're not listening to logic. And their response was, well, maybe you should be looking into turning this block into an RPP block, which means that residents have to pay $50 a year for a permit for as a residential permit there. And I thought that was not appropriate to ask hardworking residents of that neighborhood to pay a tax essentially for parking spots that DDOT took away. So that's my
they did that. They did that in my SMD too about a year and a half ago at First and Ingraham. When you ask for 4-way stop signs, that's their response. But we're still at it. Any other comments from anyone in the community? Questions, concerns? All right. Hearing none, we will move on to our comments from our city officials. First, we have MPD. This month, we have Lieutenant Siobhan Ross, who is Clapton Porter, who normally comes, will not be here this evening, but Lieutenant Ross is going to give an update on public safety issues for PSAs 403 and 407. Lieutenant Ross, you have 5 minutes for your presentation, and there'll be 5-minute Q&A.
Got it. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Siobhan Ross. I'm one of the evening shift managers here. At the end of the discussion, I'll leave my chat. I'll leave my information where you can contact me if you have any additional questions. Briefly, on 407, we've been having a number of theft from autos. We're getting slammed with theft from autos. We've had a total of 6 year to date now, mainly occurring on the evening shift. We've also been getting hit with a lot of theft from motor vehicles. So we are strongly encouraging everyone to not leave any belongings in their vehicle at all whatsoever. Don't leave anything. That is enticing some of these thieves and criminals to break into your vehicles. We also had one carjacking year to date that was fortunately closed by arrest, 600 block of Gallatin Street last Friday. We had an individual sitting in his vehicle and was forced out of his vehicle at gunpoint. Fortunately, we were able to apprehend the vehicle and a juvenile and a weapon recovery in regards to that. So again, be mindful of your surroundings. If you are parked in your car or whatever, unloading groceries, just please use extreme caution and move with a purpose. Try not to be distracted. And in 403, we've had a total of 17 thefts from autos in various locations. We're not seeing a pattern on a particular street. It's throughout the PSA of 403. We've had a total of 9 motor vehicle thefts stolen, mainly with food delivery drivers. And again, people leaving their vehicles running, but I know it's cold. You're leaving your vehicle running, you're unloading groceries or whatever the case is. We've been seeing an increase in that. Also want to push out awareness. Although you have your key fob and you may be in a house or nearby, the key fob can still pick up the vehicle where someone can jump in and drive away, although you have the key fob on you. We have been seeing that as well. And lastly, we did have 2 robberies year to date. The first one was at the 5500 block of Kennedy, armed robbery gun, and the second one was the 5400 block of 14th Street. They both occurred on midnights, and unfortunately, both of our victims were walking home, either to and from work or going to work, and they were victims of a crime. Again, we encourage you all not to be distracted with headphones, being on your cell phone, just being cognizant of your surroundings. So again, pay attention, don't be distracted, and we're pushing out as much literature and flyers as we can as well on social media. We're preventing some of these thefts. And that pretty much sums up the crime for 403 and 407.
But Lieutenant Ross, so has anyone found that white Charger that everyone's looking for?
No, not yet. We're still on the hunt for the white Charger. That Charger has been going around with an actual firearm, shooting it at vehicles, just destroying their property, and as well as using a BB gun and a paintball gun. We have about 9 cases so far we're looking into for this white Dodge Charger.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Any questions for Lieutenant Ross from commissioners?
I have a quick question. Hi, Lieutenant Ross. Thank you so much for your report. I'm the commissioner for the 600 block of Gallatin, which is where the carjacking happened. Is there a way that, I know that the crime stats are reported out on a daily basis. Is there a way that MPD connects with ANC commissioners when the crimes occur? And the only reason I'm asking, well, 2 reasons. One, just to make sure we're aware of the crime that's happening in our single member district, but also to make sure that the victims are okay, as well as their families. So that's my follow-up question. Are the victims okay of the carjacking?
Yes, the victims are okay. They weren't injured. They weren't hurt. That's an excellent point you made. We can add you all to the chain right now. The protocol we have set up is we're only calling when it's something violent or significant, maybe a shooting or stabbing, but I can work with my colleague, Lieutenant Porter, and we can get you all put on the chain of notifications. We are pushing it out through the listserv and through the Nextdoor app, but we can also add you on the email chain when something comes out to do your follow-up.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Any other commissioners have comments or questions for Lieutenant Ross?
Yes, Chair Bowser. Hi, Lieutenant. I have just
Hi.
a quick question. I think it was back on January 31st. There was a shooting on the 900 block of Ingraham Street Northwest, which is between my single member district and Commissioner Lynch's. And I don't think we've heard anything from MPD about if they found the people that involved and what's happened since then. Do you have any information to share on that?
900 block of Ingram on what, do you remember the date on that?
I believe it was January 31st.
Okay, was it an actual shooting or was it a sounds of gunshots?
I think the latter. I think shots were fired, but there's footage of someone concealing a gun after it had happened, I believe.
Well, someone was shot because he stumbled in shot into the CVS there on the corner.
Yeah, that's right. I apologize. Yes.
And then the same night, there was someone found at Jefferson and 13th, which we never found out if that was related or not. There was a body found, which is 2 long blocks away.
Let's see. Yep, I just pulled it up. At this point, we don't have an update. The department did put out a lookout on the YouTube page with a very blurry video of a person wearing all black and light colored shoes that was running from the location. But that's the only update that I've been aware of at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Lieutenant Ross, first of all, does any other commissioner have a question for Lieutenant Ross before I move to the residents? Okay, I have a quick question. Oh, Commissioner Noble, did you have a question?
Nope.
Okay, Lieutenant Ross, do you know whether there's going to be any prosecution or indictment of the person that was allegedly involved in a sexual assault at the former Cheese Monster? We haven't heard anything, and we didn't have any facts about what happened at with that situation. So I just want to find out if you all have determined whether or not a crime was committed.
Yeah, so to clarify,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Ross,
No,
I'm trying to get you the address.
No problem. What's the information? That's definitely something I can look into to find out. We'll do a
The
follow-up.
question is, what with the allegation of sexual assault at this business that is now closed called the Cheese Monster? I think it's on
the location is 713 Kennedy Street, Northwest.
713 Kennedy Street, because we didn't get any feedback and we didn't know any of the facts surrounding the event.
Got it.
So
Okay, so I have the address. I'll look it up and I can email you an update to see what's been put in the report.
I appreciate that. Any community members have a question or comment for Lieutenant Ross? Okay. Hearing none. I want to thank you, Lieutenant Ross, for giving a thorough report and coming to visit us. We really appreciate it and appreciate you providing feedback. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you all. And I'll leave my information in the chat. I'll be on here in a few more moments. Thank you.
Yes, please do. Please do. Thank you. Okay, the next person we would like to have speak is Ms. Yamaleth Escobar. She's the Ward 4 MOCR, which stands for the Mayor's Office of Community Relations, I think. Hopefully she is here.
I'm going to start the timer at 5 minutes. Let's see if
Yeah, I guess we should wait to see her. I sent out the registration invite, but
The mayor's having her budget forum, so she may be.
Oh, that's right. The mayor's having the budget forum. That's true. That's true. There's so many conflicts. Okay, I don't see her. Maybe she will join us later. Ward 4 Council Member Louis George's office, we invite you to give an update. I thought I saw someone from the council member's office. Yes, how are you? Welcome. You will have 5 minutes to present and 5 minutes for questions and answers from the community.
Mr. Landrew.
Hey, my colleague Aura is gonna give you guys some thoughts and updates, but I just wanted to, one, introduce her. She's new on our constituent services team, and two, let you guys know that this is my last week with the council member's office. Friday will be my last day. We are going to be hiring a third person, so we'll be a team of 3. Tamira is still working with us. Aura's, I guess, a month, maybe 6 weeks in, and our new person will start in the next week or two. So just wanted to share that, say that I've really appreciated getting to know y'all, coming out in the community with you and getting to partner in this hard work.
Matthew, are you moving back to Louisiana?
I'm staying put, but I am repping my gear today, so. But I'll still be on Upster Street.
You've been doing an outstanding job, and we know the new person with the council member will do a good job as well.
Thank you. Passing it over to Auda to talk about some of our work.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. As Matt mentioned, my name is Auda. I use she, her pronouns. I am a Ward 4 resident, and my standards of operation are as long as I can act at least as half a Matt, I'll be happy. So I'm here to give you our updates for the week, and looking forward to working with you all more going forward. So I'll start with budget, since budget already came up. So the council voted to officially request a supplemental budget request from Mayor Bowser, this time to use part of DC's massive budget surplus to provide DC residents much needed rent and utility relief. Since the CDC program closed and emergency rental legislation funds run out early every year, DC tenants are at risk of not having any support to help them keep them housed as we work to recover from the effects of the pandemic. Additionally to that, the supplemental budget request calls for funding for improving health and safety protocols at schools, expanding recreational opportunities for young people, and investing more in community safety. On that same line, Councilmember Lewis George is also finalizing her FY23 budget request letter to the mayor this week. She has held a community budget forum just this past Saturday, I believe, where she heard from many residents and commissioners of other budget priorities. So thanks for everyone who showed up. If you have budget community priorities that you'd like to communicate to the council member, or you haven't yet, feel free to shoot us a message to our office, and Matt will share our contact information in case you don't have it. I'll move forward with legislation. So foreclosure moratorium. Earlier this month, Council Member Lewis George passed emergency and temporary legislation at the DC Council extending DC's foreclosure moratorium, which was set to expire in early February, and it's been extended to June 30th. So the bill also protects residents who apply for housing assistance through September 30th. DC is we know it's about to receive $50 million from the federal government to provide housing assistance to residents who fell behind during the pandemic. And so the council is stepping in to protect struggling homeowners until that federal aid can be distributed, because we believe no DC residents should lose their home, especially when help is on the way. On that same note of supporting our folks throughout this pandemic, childcare pay is a topic that's been up to the council member. So also earlier this month, the council approved the first year of grants to raise pay for early childhood educators and to bring long-term stability to childcare in DC. We believe that childcare is essential for economy and for Ward 4 families, but the predominantly Black and Brown women who do this work have been underpaid for decades, despite being asked to educate our children during their most foundational years. So each childcare worker will be eligible to receive between $10,000 to $14,000 in payments later this year to begin changing that. This is happening because the Homes and Hearts Amendment that the council member passed in the DC budget last year. Last thing on legislation, Safe Routes to School Act and Walk Without Worry Act has a hearing. It's scheduled for March 14th starting at noon. The Safe Routes to School Act, which was introduced by Councilmember Lewis George, would make sweeping traffic safety improvements around schools and surrounding neighborhoods. And the Walk Without Worry Act, which was introduced by our neighbor at Councilmember Nadeau in Ward 1, would bring more raised crosswalks, raised intersections, and continuous sidewalks that increase pedestrian safety. Councilmember Lewis George wants to make a specific ask, which is for commissioners and community organizers and everyone else to get involved in supporting this legislation, or at least voicing concerns or anything otherwise. So I look forward to hearing from y'all on that. The redistricting has started and is well underway. This process is being taken up by a task force of folks who will join us in this meeting today. So I won't speak to their great work, but just look forward to hearing from that. I'll close out with saying that there's oversight hearings as well as listening sessions. So the council member is hosting a listening as we climb a virtual listening session. We will be in 4D to close out this virtual tour. We got 2 left. We got this week, we got North Portal Estates, and then we'll be back in 4D February 24th, so next Thursday, to chat with our Petworth and Brightwood Park neighbors. Performance oversight hearings, we got MPD tomorrow, DDOT this Friday, and the commissioner already mentioned DCRA and WMATA as well will be happening next week. So Matt will share how to sign up for those. And finally, I'll close out with saying sign up for our newsletter if you haven't, where a lot of these updates come out weekly on Fridays. I have my special tradition of reading them either Friday nights or Saturday mornings with a cup of tea. So hopefully y'all find those useful too. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from commissioners?
Not a question, but I do want to publicly say that Aura, welcome. It'll be great to be working with you. And Matthew, it's really, truly been a pleasure working with you. So thank you so much for everything that you've done.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Noble, did you want to say something?
No, I would just note that Yamalith Escobar joined us from the mayor's office. So we sort of
Okay.
that the agenda, if we can go back to her.
Yeah, I'll go back to her as soon as we finish out with Aura. We will, if no other commissioners haven't.
Yeah, no,
I'm sorry.
I would just echo the Arian's sentiment that Matthew's been great to work with, and yeah, we'll miss you.
Really, we will. Any residents have any questions for the council members representative? All right. Thank you so much and welcome to our Ward 4 ANC meetings. We really appreciate you joining us. Thank you. And if you could put your information in the chat, that would be good too. Really appreciate it. Okay, we will move to Ms. Yamalith Escobar, who's representing the mayor's office for an update on the mayor's actions in the past couple weeks. Thank you. Welcome, Yamalith.
Everyone, apologies for being late. I was out with
No,
the budget
no need to
forum.
apologize. No need to apologize. You're on time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I do have some general updates and a little bit of COVID updates, as many of you all know. Since the height of the Omicron wave in DC, COVID-19 cases have dropped by more than 90%, and there's been a 95% reduction in hospitalizations. With that being said, as of February 15th, 2022, indoor venues will no longer be required to verify that patrons are vaccinated. Businesses may choose to keep vaccination requirements in place, but that's completely up to them. Based on DC's current transmission rate, DC Health will keep the mask advisory that was issued back in December 2021. The indoor mask requirements will be dialed back on March 1st, 2022.
Yamalith, can I just jump in and ask you a question? So what's the timeline in the plan for reducing the mask mandate for schools and
as at the moment right now, they're still going to be required to wear masks in school.
No, I understand that, but is there a plan for?
Not sure, but I can look into that for you guys.
Yeah, okay. And I'm gonna use this moment, sorry, I'm just gonna use this moment to say something. We don't need to politicize this thing, but I, as the father of two very young children, I have seen my daughter grow up with a speech delay, essentially. And I think that's because she knows nothing other than a world where people are wearing masks. And so I think it is very important. And, you know, again, I'm not some crazy,
Excuse me.
with respect to this, but I do think it's very important that we get children into the most normal environment that we possibly can as quickly as possible. And I would invite other commissioners to comment and tell me I'm wrong or crazy, or, you know, maybe I'm on the right track or whatever, but I think that we need to get the mask mandate out of schools as quickly as possible.
Gotcha. Okay, I will definitely flag that and share your concerns and recommendations on my end in regards to school children still wearing masks in schools. But as of now, beginning March 1st, masks will not be required at the following areas, which include restaurants and bars, courses and entertainment venues, gyms and recreation centers, house of workshops, businesses, grocery stores and pharmacies and retail establishments. And circling back to what you just stated, on March 1st, masks will still be, as of right now, will still be required at any private business that wants to require the use of masks by its employees or customers, schools, childcare facilities and libraries, healthcare and medical facilities, public transit, taxis, and rideshare vehicles, as well as any DC government facilities with direct interaction between employees and the public. The last day of firehouse testing will be on Saturday, February 26th. However, if you do feel the need that you want to get tested or you need anything like a mask, if you still prefer wearing masks, Mayor Muir Bowser did partner up with DC Health to announce the one-stop shop for all COVID needs. And the one in Ward 4 is located at 4703 13th Street Northwest, which is inside of the People's Congressional United Church on Christ. So you can all go there, whatever you need. If you guys still want to get tested, any rapid tests, their COVID center is still available for you there. In regards, I did want to share that the summer youth employment is now open. Mayor Muir Bowser officially launched the application period for the 2022 Mayor Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program, and encourages the district's youth between the ages of 14 and 24 to apply online. You can visit summerjobs.dc.gov to submit an application. And I strongly encourage you guys, if you have kids in that age group, please go ahead and register them to work. They keep the kids engaged all summer, and they get paid on their own, so they know the responsibility of having a job and things of that nature. That's actually one of the first places that I started at the age of 14. So I really recommend you guys, if you have any kids or any parents or family of 14 and 24, encourage them to apply. What else would I like to say? That's pretty much all I have. I did want to mention that there is the Bridge Fund is now open for any businesses that did not receive any funds previously in regards to relief fund for COVID-19. So that there is money out there. If you hear of any businesses that need assistance with rent, payroll, inventory, or operation expenses, the Bridge Fund application is now open and they're closed on February 25th. So if you know about any businesses that may be struggling, that they didn't make over 2.5 million or less in revenue, send them over to the Bridge Fund and they can get some help. That'll be all for me.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Escobar. Can you put in the chat the contact information for the Bridge Fund application, a website and a telephone number? And also, did you say the testing, COVID testing ends on February 26th?
February 26th, but these are only the fire stations. At the fire station.
Oh, only the fire station. So the testing at People's Congregation United Church of Christ at 4700 block of 13th Street will continue.
Yes.
And how long is that slated to continue? Indefinitely for now?
Yeah, for now, there's no date for closing that down.
Okay, thank you. Do any other commissioners have any questions or comments for Yamalith Escobar? Go ahead.
Oh, I'll wait. Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead,
okay.
Commissioner Bouquet, and then Commissioner Israel.
Sure, just briefly, Yamalith, can you just speak to the mayor's budget forum and how residents can provide their feedback, given that they're attending our meeting tonight and the budget forum is happening consecutively?
Sure, thank you for the reminder. If you were unable to watch, tune into the budget forum that's currently going on at the moment, you can submit your questions or your surveys. I'm dropping the link now. There you go. And then you can also, of course, rewatch it or submit any questions that you may have to me, and I'll be sure to figure out how we can get those questions answered for you guys.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Israel?
Yes. Well, first off, Yamalith, I want to thank you for helping get these new signs put on the public litter cans, asking people or reminding people not to put their household trash in them. I saw them recently at Larry Allen Park and throughout the neighborhood, so much appreciated. My only other ask on that is if it's possible to get those also in Spanish, that would be great.
I actually, when I did receive your email, and I had ready, when I originally request for them to be posted more around Award 4, I did request for different languages, just, you know, to help people understand it more better. So I'm definitely working on it. They are working on translating it at the moment. So as soon as they have it ready and printed, we'll start seeing those around as well.
Awesome, thank you. And I'm sad to hear that the firehouse testing is ending soon. It's been in my S&D at Engine 24 Firehouse for I guess like 18 months now, 3 days a week. So that's unfortunate that that's ending, but maybe that's a sign that the pandemic is getting coming to an end, fingers crossed. The one just comment I wanted to offer to you, and it's actually kind of in line with what Commissioner Noble said, is, you know, as the father of a 2-year-old, I was very supportive of Mayor Bowser's decision to have the proof of COVID vaccine requirement to enter restaurants, bars, etc. And I was deeply disappointed that she abruptly ended that 2 days ago without any prior notice, even warning to the council, from my understanding. And I think it's actually going to harm DC businesses, because there's a lot of parents out there with unvaccinated children under 5 who may have been willing to go indoors to restaurants with their unvaccinated children that will no longer do that. And I'm among them, and I'm very disappointed the mayor did that. And I don't think I mean, it's unlikely she'll reverse that. But for the public's awareness, the DC Council is actually holding an emergency vote this Friday on legislation that would basically reinstate that requirement for 90 days. And so if you're supportive of that, you can contact your council members and ask them to vote in favor of that. It's an emergency bill. But I do think, you know, there was a poll from the Washington Post yesterday, 74% of DC residents supported that requirement. That's an overwhelming majority of the city. So I'm kind of dumbfounded.
I'm just gonna jump in for 1 second, because I think we're getting off track. But I do want to respond.
We're not debating this. Make your comment, but
sorry, that's it. That's the end of my comment. I just wanted to let people know that the council is voting on this emergency bill and that they can offer their thoughts on it. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Noble. I mean, briefly.
No, I was just going to say, I as a general comment, given that we have this platform to discuss policy, which, you know, we have no authority to implement, I think my personal approach is that it's hard to roll back restrictions, and nobody wants to be the person that, you know, goes out there and says that we should violate the rules or roll back the rules. But I think to the extent that we can try to advocate for a more normal life for our children and, you know, our community, I think that's something worth thinking about. So that's all. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you for that. Any residents, any attendees have any comments with regard to? Go ahead, Jen Kaufman. Go ahead. I see your hand.
Thank you so much. I'll be brief. Thank you, Ms. Escobar, for sharing the updates. They're very informative. As a resident, I just wanted to state that I was very disappointed by the timing of these rollbacks. I understand that many folks want to return to normalcy. However, it felt like there was no forewarning. It also doesn't feel like they're particularly science-based. As a parent of a disabled child, as a household with at-risk family members, vaccination isn't enough to protect us. And the current case rates are higher than they were in January. So 50% reduction of a really big number is still a large number. We are not yet still in a place of like being able to return to normal. Our family can't return to normal when these kind of reductions are being reduced prematurely, when it's still a cold time of year and people are still needing to huddle indoors. So really want to encourage the mayor's office to not remove masks, at least for schools, given the current state of community transmission, and wanted to name that as a disabled family we feel really forsaken by this policy, and just wanted to share that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments with respect to Ms. Escobar, the mayor's representative's comments? Or any comment that you would like to have Ms. Escobar take back to the mayor? I'll ask again, does any attendee, any resident have any comment with respect to masks or anything else that you'd like the mayor to know? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Ms. Escobar. Thank you for being here this evening, and hope everything will be well with you.
Thank you, guys.
And really would ask you to, if you would share with the mayor's office, I don't know how the chain of command is, but share with the mayor's office the varying points of view. Yeah, I mean, I know I'm not going into a restaurant, but
no, that's what I'm here for. I'm
older,
you guys
so
say, I
I'm
take
older.
it down and I flag it and I let them know, even if no one agrees, everyone agrees, it's all shared and it's all looped up. So
yeah, I mean, it's varying community, varying views we've heard this evening,
right.
And I think they should be shared because we're still in the pandemic. Okay, thank you. We will move along as quickly as we can. We're going to have a very brief presentation from DC Water with respect to the Clean Rivers projects. They're going to give us an update. They were here a couple months ago, and they're going to update us about the start of their project in our neighborhood. Sir, Mr. Linhard, if I'm pronouncing your name right.
Yes, you are.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. And you have 5 minutes to present, and you can take questions for 5 minutes.
I appreciate that. Amanda Zander, thank you.
Yeah, hi, Commissioner Bowser. I'm actually trying to share my screen for our presentation.
I think you have to be upgraded to a panelist or a host. Is that correct, Commissioner Noble?
That's correct. Could you send me the presentation, or we can make you a host, I suppose. Hang on. Amanda Zander, we can make you a host as long as you promise to return the host authority to me.
Definitely, as soon as we're done with this pretty quick presentation. Thank you.
And welcome, Ms. Zander.
Hopefully everyone, does everyone see the PowerPoint presentation now?
Yes, I see it.
Great, thank you. Okay, so thank you for having us tonight. As Commissioner Bowser stated, we were here actually last April. We were talking to you about DC Water's Clean Rivers project, specifically the Green Infrastructure Project, Rock Creek Project B. We were in the planning and design phase at that time, and we're back tonight to talk to you about the upcoming construction. We have a contractor on board, and we'll be starting this work soon. We anticipate that for your district will be in that area probably later this summer. And just as a reminder, DC Water's Clean Rivers Project is a federally mandated project working to reduce combined sewer overflows in the district to all the waterways, Anacostia, Potomac, and Rock Creek. With that, I'm going to let my colleague, Eric Lienhard, who's one of the project engineers, go through some of these slides.
Thank you again for having us back. As we discussed last time, Rock Creek Project B is the second project of green infrastructure in the Rock Creek watershed. The first one was done in the Manor Park area. This time DC Water decided to spread the green infrastructure in 6 different areas within the watershed. We found that when we condensed construction in one single neighborhood, it really the residents had trouble with parking. There was a lot of construction fatigue. So instead of doing the intense green infrastructure in one single area, we decided to spread it to 6 different areas. As Amanda said, even though the project starts construction in March of this year, we'll be starting in ANC 1A. The work here is anticipated to be late summer, about somewhere in August of this year is what our contractors are anticipating to be into your ward. The full project will be managing 22 impervious acres, utilizing a mixture of pervious alleys as well as bioretentions. Specific to your ward, we call this Project Area 5, which is the Sherman Circle area. We're planning on 4 permeable alley segments and 10 planter bioretentions for this. It is consistent with what we presented to you in April of last year. And then in our Project Area 6, we were able to locate 6 permeable alley segments. So a segment, if you're on a T alley, it may be both segments of the T, or it may just be one segment. So when we talk segments, it may be just a portion of your alley. And then 3 planter bioretentions. This would be in the Brightwood Park area of your district. So like I said, we would be doing permeable alleys. This is when the rain will either fall directly on the alley and be soaked up into the alley and stored, or the runoff that's coming from upstream of the alley or off of residential properties would then be captured in that permeable pavement, stored underground, and either be infiltrated into the ground or slowly released back into the combined sewer system to prevent combined sewer overflows, which is part of our long-term control plan. In addition to the green alleys that are going to be done in your district, we have planter bioretentions. So these will be in the planter strip, that is the strip between the curb line and the sidewalk, typically found between 2 trees or at the end of the block. We try to locate them as close to the end of the block as possible, just before the stop sign. Since there is no parking within 15 feet of a stop sign, we try to locate those in that space, not to take up any parking spaces, or for when people open up that passenger side door, hitting the fence of the bioretention. So now that we've selected the sites in your district, what should you expect in August during construction? The first thing and the most important thing that we always like to tell our ratepayers, our commissioners, is that we will be having a 24-hour hotline. So if there is an issue, a question, there will always be a phone number that a resident can call to ask questions or to report an issue. The work hours are DC work hours, say 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Weekend work may be considered. That is something the contractor would come to us and ask in advance for. And that would be typically for very long alleys that the duration is taking a little bit longer and we want them to hurry up out of that alley. There will be no disruption to water and sewer unless there is a lead surface lateral found during our excavation for bioretentions. If that is the case, we would be replacing that lead service lateral underneath our lead-free DC program. All of the sites will be secured during the workday as well as in the evenings. We will be providing vibration and noise monitoring to make sure that the contractor is following district laws for that. And we will also have pest control in the alleys in case, as we do the construction, typically this is where we place our trash for pickup. We want to make sure that there's pest control. Trash pickup will be in front of people's residence. So we are working with the Department of Public Works to ensure that trash pickup during that construction period would happen in front of the residents instead of in the alley. And if any of your residents are unable to move their trash cans to the front of their property, our contractors are there to help them. We don't want to put too much responsibility on the resident, and we know that this is a disruption to them, so we don't want to put them out too much. So even for access for deliveries, handicapped access, if any of your residents need special assistance, please let us know, either in advance of construction or when we start putting door hangers up there'll be more information for your residents to contact us. And as I said, trash and recycling will be in front of the house. And we will be protecting the beautiful trees in your district, making sure that when we're doing that construction, that we are not disrupting the critical root zone, or causing any damage to the trees. It's also important that you understand who we are out in the field. So all DC Water employees, inspectors will have a Clean Rivers vest on. And the contractor for this job is Fort Myer Construction, and they will also have a vest with their logo on the back. Those vests are on the screen here. So it's important so your residents know who we are, and that it's not somebody else. After construction.
Can I just ask a quick question about Fort Myer Construction? So
of course.
Yeah, so how did that RFP process happen, and what's the history of their relationship with the District of Columbia government?
The RFP process, we pre-qualified the contractors. So there was a qualifications process where DC Water and their engineers reviewed the qualifications, shortlisted 2 firms, and then sent the bid documents to those firms. It was a best value selection, so it was not just based on price. It was based on qualifications of their proposed teams, ensuring that they met the CBE requirements, ensured that their past history of safety was consistent with where DC Water wanted them to be, and that they were able to carry the proper insurances. In terms of their history with district government, I can't speak of that. I can only speak of our history at Clean Rivers with Fort Myer. Fort Myer was the contractor who performed the green infrastructure work for our Potomac River Project A down in West Glover Park, as well as in Burleaf. That project came in under budget and on time. So, we were very happy with the product. We did post-construction monitoring, and our facilities that were built in that area performed at a higher level than some of our facilities that we built other places. So we were extremely happy with the performance from Fort Myer.
Oh, they're a good firm. I was just curious.
Sure. So after construction, DC Water will take on maintenance responsibilities. So as facilities are built by Fort Myer, they will be maintaining those facilities until the end of the job. The full duration of the job is expected to last until September 2023. Not in your ward, just the total. And then DC Water will take on maintenance. So for the alleys, you will see street sweepers in the alleys March through December. And at times you may see them, power washing, some of the bricks to make sure some of the debris that fell between the bricks that we need for infiltration are cleaned. And then on a monthly basis at the buyer retentions, you will see them, our maintenance crews coming out, picking out trash, weeding them, pruning them back, ensuring that they look good. They do become trash containers from the wind. So we want them to look good, but we also need them to function. So if there's any additional sediment loading that has occurred in the bioretention, that extra sediment will be taken out so they are ready for that next storm. I'm going to turn it over to Amanda if we still have time before we take additional questions.
You've already taken 10 minutes.
Oh no!
And so let's just give you 5 minutes more to include the questions.
I tried to go as quickly as possible.
Yeah, sorry about that. I couldn't see the clock as we were.
Neither could I.
We're happy to answer any questions. This slide was just talking about a free program we have that's available to 4D for downspout disconnection in a rain barrel. If your downspouts meet the criteria to be disconnected, you can reach out to us. And this last slide just gives our contact information. And as a reminder that we will distribute notifications to residents that are going to be impacted with this construction ahead of construction. We'll do that in a couple of different ways through door-to-door flyers, as well as door hangers as well.
And I also put in the chat
for providing the time.
I also put in the chat the link, and if your residents do go to that link, you can put in your address to see if your property will have green infrastructure close to it. So it's a great interactive map that we have on our website. So if there are any questions, we'd be.
Commissioner Israel has a question. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much for that presentation. So in my single member district 4004, it looks like the only two projects are going to be the alley behind 7th Place, like near 7th Place and Gallatin Street, and then on the curb on that same block. I actually live right there.
Okay.
So I guess my question is, you know, with the alley project, from start to finish on that individual project, how long do you think it would take, just so that our neighbors, you know, whose alley entrance or entrance to their back rear property will be impacted? I just would like to know what you think.
Sure. So a typical alley, and I don't know exactly what the length of construction is specifically for those alleys off the top of my head, but a typical alley, which would be about 200 linear feet of construction, takes about 3 weeks. Now, if it is, you know, more than that, you know, obviously it would take 4 or 5 weeks. The construction schedule that we do have from our contractor does not have any alley closed more than 4.5, 5 weeks. So we typically tell people 3 weeks duration. And that would also include any restoration of like the non-pervious part of the alley. So we do have to put in an under drain to connect back into our sewer, which is in the street. So we do have to break up, you know, traditional alley pavement as well, and then restore that. So that includes that restoration period as well.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Bouquet.
Thank you. Just briefly, if Ms. Sander or Mr. Lienhart,
Either
I'm
one.
so sorry. No. Which one is it?
Lean hard.
Lean hard. Okay.
Yes.
If either of you, and I'll put my email in the chat, can email me this presentation, we can make
Absolutely.
it available on our website, and that way folks can access the information.
That'd be wonderful.
Thank you for that.
I'll get that to you first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there any residents who have questions for DC Water with respect to this project? Okay, let me ask a question. Have you coordinated? I know there was a problem when the alley behind my home was done. We got a lot of complaints. Have you coordinated with DPW?
Yes. So we right before this meeting, I reviewed our notes from our last meeting with you, and you brought up the question. You asked us to make sure that we coordinated with DPW because of that issue of your past experience. So we have been coordinating with DPW, and Fort Myer has been in constant communication with them. They're looking at starting not in your district, but another district. So that coordination has already started. And because of our work in other areas of the district, that coordination has worked it worked perfectly. Now, has there been a time that a trash can didn't make it to the front? Absolutely. Things like that's going to happen. But for the most part, 99% of the time, that coordination was done very well. We also have a construction management firm, K, who will be overseeing the construction along with DC Water, who will be ensuring that the contractor, Fort Myer, is doing all those coordinations, not just with DPW, but all of the district agencies.
Thank you for that. Let me ask one more time, are there any residents, any members of the public, if the attendees would like to ask a quick question for DC Water? Hearing none.
I'm putting the web address back in for the one resident, Betty, who asked for it.
Okay.
And just click on the map. When you go to that link, click on the map and a new interactive map will come up and you can put in your
address. And can you repeat the telephone number so that people who are listening by phone will be able to contact you?
Of course. Amanda, do you have that up on screen? Or can you read it out?
Are you looking for the telephone number?
Yes, the hotline.
Yes, that's, I'll post it in the chat, but it's 1-800-685-9302.
All right, thank you very much. Thank
And
you
I want to
all
make
for-
sure I give up my host,
Oh, please do.
the host back to you all.
And again, I apologize for taking twice the amount of allotted time.
No
but
worries. I know the
we're so
time goes fast. I've been
It does,
called
and
a
we're
lot
we're
at
so
public
excited
hearings.
about this project too. I think your residents will truly understand the benefit. So
Thank you very much. I appreciate your attendance.
It feels like DC Water has come a long way in the last few years.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And who should I be, how can I give up these host capabilities? I want to make sure I do the right thing to get this back to you guys.
Commissioner Noble?
Right, so you should be able to right click on my name and make me the host, or I can.
Yep, coming back over to you. Yes. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you all.
Great, thank you. Have a good evening. We now turn to the ANC Ward 4 Redistricting Task Force. They're going to give us a presentation. We have Jen Kaufman, who very proudly say is a resident of S&D 4D02. And we have Bobby King, who's a resident of ANC 4C. And so they're going to address a few questions about the task force, the ANC Redistricting Task Force. So I'll give them the floor now. Welcome, Ms. Kaufman, and welcome, Mr. King.
Right, and Ms. Kaufman, if you send me an email.
Let me say you have 10 minutes presentation and 10 minutes Q&A. Go ahead, Commissioner.
No, and I'm just looking for the email that you may have sent me with the presentation.
Sure, it's also in your chat as well as email.
Okay.
But we can start by introducing ourselves.
Sure.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jen Kaufman. My pronouns are she, her, aya. I am a 4D02 resident. Very nice to be here representing the Ward 4 Redistricting Task Force. And let me hand it over to Bobby.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Bobby King. He, him is are my pronouns. I am a resident 4C, and I am glad to help answer any questions that you may have at this time. So,
and if I understand correctly, you're going to discuss the process, tell us how the residents can provide feedback, and describe population shifts in Ward 4.
that will be correct.
That's right. Yeah.
Take it away.
For sure. And so I think kind of one thing that is really helpful to level set, and we'll share slides as soon as they're, oh, I accidentally sent them to everybody, so folks can see that as well. Oh, thank you, Commissioner Noble. This is, you know, we really are, the task force strives to ensure that these meetings are public and they're accessible, that they're transparent, and it's most important that we hear from residents and that residents have an opportunity to engage in this. Three important ways that you can engage is to participate in the meetings. You can go to ward4.com/redistricting to see upcoming meetings. The next one is actually this Sunday. We can also be reached via the email address ward4redistricting@dccouncil.us. And then the redistricting voicemail, 202-642-5714. We can receive communications in English and in Spanish. And so it's really important for us to also have bilingual and multilingual communications to ensure that we're getting the word out.
Speaking of multilingual, just to bring a specific point to this before we get into it, if there's additional interpretation services that are needed, please go to Ward 4 Redistricting at dccouncil.us 3 days prior to the hearing. Commissioner Noble, may you please go back forward? All right, so these are the, hello? Oh,
okay. We can hear you.
Oh, I thought someone was going to ask a question. Yes, these are the guiding values, namely that the idea that this is a non-partisan, apolitical task force is very important with regards to this specific body. so much so that none of the people who are members of this task force are able to be current ANC commissioners or are running for a 2022 seat. The goal of this is to make sure that we provide Ward 4 residents with multiple ways of weighing in on the task force information. We want to balance this population, the population equally amongst the Ward 4 districts. Namely, there are right now 37 districts for the ANC, and with the population growth, we can roughly see 42 to 43 ANC seats in total within the ANC within the Ward 4 district. So the goal would be to rebalance for population equity, making sure that there's fair access to everything within the government, the local government for our Washingtonians.
May I just ask sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but may I just ask a question, Bobby?
Sure.
So how do you all see and how do you value the input of advisory neighborhood commissioners?
I would say I want to note that we will consider ANC commissioners and the advisory neighborhood commissions with consideration. We cannot use the term great weight given the history of the term within DC's DC governance.
What do you mean?
So,
you can't, what do you mean you can't use the term
the
great
term great weight means it's almost very much assumed that there will be a lot of that will have a lot more influence than say.
Yeah, it's a legal term, and so you're saying you can't use that term?
Not right now. No.
Well, I think that there's you know, we know that great weight is the legal definition, and we know that that means that, for instance, every communication that we receive from a commissioner must be responded to in writing, right? The legal definition requires that, and that is certainly
Yeah, Chevron doctrine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how this task force will operate. In terms of nomenclature that we're using with the community, we're spelling it out a bit more in a more accessible way, because most people don't, who aren't as deeply connected and engaged with ongoing, ANC matters, don't know what that means. And we had been hearing community feedback that they thought that that meant more consideration than that of residents, whereas we recognize that ANC perspectives are reflective often of residents, et cetera. So rather than using a legal term that people don't understand, we're just specifying that any ANC commissioner communication resolution will be responded to in writing by the task force.
Thank you, Jen. That was exactly what I was trying to state.
Yeah. Still not sure that that's what I was getting at, but okay, sure, go ahead. Sorry, Bobby.
Oh, was there a point that you were still trying to kind of understand?
It's a larger point, so we can just move on. Thanks.
If I could just stop here very quickly, just try to maybe for myself clarify. It's great that to respond to every individual commissioner, every resident, but it's the ANC law says the commission, if they take a vote on something that has to do with redistricting, that their position is given great weight in that it is the position of a government body, even though, and so you really have to explain why or why not you're not going to implement what the resolution has proposed. So it's
yes,
legally
exactly.
it's a little different
so
than just responding to an individual person, whether that's the commissioner or a non-commissioner.
Right. Yes, thank you so much for adding that additional clarification. I apologize for not stating it as eloquently, but certainly what I meant to say is that by responding, it's responding to any rationale if there's a departure, et cetera, communicating that to the commissioners. I do want to state, though, that I think that, for instance, we heard from Commissioner Israel to the task force, a number of task force members thought it was very helpful testimony. We heard from other commissioners who stated that their ANCs would be passing resolutions. So it's welcome. That input and feedback is very welcome, and very deeply appreciate perspectives that you provide.
Exactly. All right. Commissioner Noble, may you
Go ahead.
please, oh no, may you please move to the second page, to the
Okay.
next page? Okay. Okay, specifically, the redistricting process is every once in a 10-year, the Washington, we redistrict the neighborhoods or rebalance the neighborhoods to make sure that we represent local populations. As we said for this district, the figure for an ANC is to be 2,000 individuals. So each ANC are made up, as everyone knows, each ANC are made up of commissioners elected from the residents with specifically their special member district. So for right now, Ward 4 has 6 to 10 SMDs as the average, with Ward 4D being the smallest of the commission SMD areas with 6. So we are hoping to take into account the population figures, keeping into account the cultural milieu that brings the SMD together, as well as other factors like streets, lines, or specific type of aspects that define the community. And our goal is to make sure that that there's no disadvantaging of the populations on racial lines or yes.
And so most of Ward 4 has experienced growth over the past 10 years, and the statutory requirements are really to try to balance the population to about ideally a number that is 1,900 to 2,100 residents within a district. I'm sorry, within an SMD. And the slide right before that, and I'll try to go quickly, shows specifically for D. As you can see, most of the ANCs have, SMDs have populations that are over that 2,100 ideal threshold. And so the need to rebalance is obviously there. Also neighboring SMDs in 4B and 4C are also over that range. So to echo what Bobby King said earlier, we likely will have to create an additional 4 to 5 additional SMDs within our ward.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to be the devil's advocate, but like we have a limited amount of time to engage with our community here. So what's the point? What is the elevator pitch here that we're trying to understand?
So I think it's really important to share what the process is and to help understand, communicate like what this is and why folks may not know what's the number of residents that we have to have in a SMD. Currently, right after the map slide, there is a list of, apologies, I'm trying to see here on the screen here, upcoming, on slide 7, you can see things that are helpful for ANC resolutions to address. It's really helpful for us to hear how many SMDs should there be within a commission. Commissioner Israel provided a testimony that was really helpful on this to the task force. Are there?
You tell us, how many should there be?
Given the population that we have room enough for 4 to 5 more SMDs, and the reason why we have those additional 4 to 5.
So you're asking for more SMDs, is what you're saying, which is fine.
No, actually, I think there's a misunderstanding on this. We're not asking for more SMDs. We are actually having to make those SMDs because if we do just keep it status quo, then that means there will be overworked ANCs, which is a disservice to the neighborhoods who have those overworked ANCs and will be a disservice to the ANCs themselves. So
I'm not sure I follow that point.
If I can dovetail too, also, there's a question, for instance, 4D is a really great example. There are 4 statutory positions that every ANC has to have. And if there's, for instance, only 6 SMDs within a commission, then that means that that entity is more taxed than say one that has 10. And so is there an ideal number? Having that feedback from the ANC resolution or testimony is very helpful and informative to the task force. And are there features that are really important that you believe should be within an ANC? Hearing that type of testimony and resolutions are very, very helpful to us. And then on the right is just kind of more of the political nature of things that we can't like address as part of this. We're not going to be focusing on, who's in a specific, person, who's in a district, et cetera, et cetera. I know we're beyond time, so I want to focus. The next meeting is Sunday from 2 to 4. Our subgroups that are working on specific areas of Ward 4 redistricting are going to be reporting back to the broader task force about insights we've heard, gathered, and then the following week, February 27th, will be proposed maps presented to the public. The week after, this is slide
8, please.
Yes.
Please note that slide 8, specifically for March 8th from 7 to 9 p.m., those are the date, that is the date for discussions with regards to the proposed maps for the Ward 4 SMD. And please also note that we are, Jonathan, I'm sorry, Commissioner Noble.
John is fine.
All right, John?
Yep.
I thought you wanted to say a point.
No.
Oh, okay. So so please note that Tuesday, March 8th is the next public hearing. In addition, I want to make sure that everyone knows that everyone's input is very important. The voicemail number that is available for 202-642-5714 and the email I stated earlier are ways to get to the commission with your input on how you prefer for the commission to actually, how you would prefer for our redistricting task force to kind of work, or things that you would want us to keep into mind when redrawing the districts.
Right, and so I'm still not clear as to what the ask is, but I will defer to our chair, Renee Bowser. Chair Bowser, please feel free to jump in and offer your thoughts. You're on mute.
Ms. Kaufman and Mr. King, are you finished with your presentation?
Yes.
Yes,
sorry.
one last point, that March 8th date, 7 to 9, will be the opportunity for public to respond to the proposed maps that will be shared on February 27th to the public.
Okay, thank you for that. And what is the February 6th meeting? What is the
February 6th meeting was just a meeting just discussing our work.
Yeah, February 6th doesn't exist anymore, that's all.
Well.
Oh, that's over. That's over. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay.
No worries.
So what your main purpose is to make sure that if I'm understanding the process correctly, and tell me if I'm wrong or explain what the process, the bottom line is, that each commissioner has a single member district that's representative, but not too many people so that they cannot give the best representation possible. And since and also commissions like 4D, we have only 6 commissioners. And so just about everyone has to be an officer. There are fewer people to share the work of the commission. So you want to balance that throughout Ward 4, is that correct?
That would be the goal, yes.
Okay.
That's helpful feedback. That is not required by statute, or there's nothing stating there needs to be X number of SMDs within a commission. And so hearing the perspective, for instance, Commissioner Israel shared that perspective, is helpful for the task force to hear.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so before March 8th, you're going to issue your report, the proposed boundaries of the single member districts and the commissions. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
The 27th is the date for the maps specifically.
February 27th.
Yes.
And and then people can kind of respond to that and give their reactions and their comments and criticisms or critiques on March 8th.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And people will be able to participate in that not only by video, but by phone. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And to sign up to participate by phone, is it this voicemail number, the 202-642-5714?
So register, go to janiceward4.com/redistricting. If someone cannot make that 7 to 9 meeting, other ways that you can participate is to leave a voicemail in English or in Spanish, to send an email to ward4redistricting@dccouncil.us. Even we're listening to what people are saying on social as well. So very much want to find multiple avenues for people to share their thoughts.
Right, and I want to get a number for people who do not have computers, who are not on email, where they can, if they're interested in the redistricting process, what number would I give them? Okay, good. 642-571 that I mentioned. Okay.
And even if it's someone saying, I don't know what's going on, can someone call me back to explain? Happy to respond to somebody who leaves a voicemail like that as well.
Yeah, and I think Commissioner Bouquet has a comment as well.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Sure. I was going to wait until everyone's done. Are you done, Chair Bowser?
No, those are the questions I had. I was just trying to sum up, for our attendees, what they can try to get out of this process. I mean, everyone wants good representation, wants attentive ANC commissioners, and this process can have some impact on that. And we want to make sure that that everybody's covered in the best manner possible. So go ahead, Commissioner Bouquet.
Thank you, Chair Bowser. I literally was going to add that exact same comment, that what the impact looks like to everyone that's on this call are twofold. One, for the June, we may not be your commissioner, or 4D03, 4D01, 4D02 may look a little bit differently. So please stay tuned with this information and keep tabs of it, because it will change your single member district lines. And given that these are voluntary roles, it would be helpful to add additional capacity to a commission so that we could be more responsive to and more quickly respond to residents' needs. So adding capacity, particularly to our ANC that is so small, is something that we are really hopeful we can do. And so just make sure that when the ballots come out, you are understanding of what your single member district looks like at that point. It may not change. Your SMD may still be this, you may still be within the SMD that you're currently at now, but it may. So those are just some things to keep in mind as a potential impact.
And I wanted to also say, following up on what Commissioner Bouquet said there, and ask the task force members to consider the issue of one side of a block being in one SMD and another side of a block being in another SMD. That sometimes may be problematic because one side may get a communication, the other side doesn't. I know it can't be helped in some instances, but if that cohesiveness were considered, that would be, I would suggest that.
If I can respond very quickly, the way that population calculations are done are by census tracts, and so those tend to be within a block. And so it typically is such that one side of a street versus the other side of a street may be separated, but what we want to do as much as possible, have those be natural boundaries. So for instance, Georgia Avenue is a very natural boundary, and having clean delineations as much as possible.
Very true.
Yes, and Chair Bowser, if I can mention, and Missouri Avenue is also a great natural boundary for the new lines for ANC 4D, which we may consider in our resolution later tonight. But I just wanted to mention for Jen and Bobby, the fantastic work that the task force has done. I've attended all 3 meetings. I've watched everything you've done. Councilmember Lewis George's staff has also been phenomenal. You've been extremely transparent. You've been open this entire time. So I really want to applaud you first and foremost. And thank you for presenting and explaining this. And, you know, just to comment on what Commissioner Noble was saying earlier, this is, I mean, I'm a map nerd, okay? So when the redistricting happens every 10 years, I'm like super excited, which is why I've been so involved in this process, quite frankly, to be honest with you. And the issue, you know, is that a lot of these decisions that will ultimately be made, you know, there's a whole variety of factors at play that the task force will need to consider. And that's why I think it's so important that, you know, ANC commissions as a body will be so impacted by your decision that we should be, you know, at least express our opinion, which we're going to do later tonight, in sort of a rational way. And so, you know, for anyone listening, you know, these redistricting decisions, there's a whole multitude of factors. And my one question for you, Jen and Bobby, is I know that the task force was sort of broken up into, I guess, subcommittees focusing on different geographic parts within Ward 4. So my question for you is, who on the task force, out of curiosity, is responsible for the geographic area of the current ANC 4D in Brightwood Park and Petworth?
It's us. Bobby and I are.
Awesome.
And so that's why your testimony was very helpful and informative, and we are deeply listening to what 4D and 4C are stating.
Exactly.
And
yes.
and to that point, I guess my question is, I mean, how siloed are the subcommittees doing their work right now? Because obviously, if your subcommittee, task force, whatever we're calling it, comes up with one recommendation, you know, the borders of that ANC will impact other geographic parts of the ward. So is there like sort of a constant coordination among these other subcommittees about what you want to do?
So the coordination, the report outs are happening at this Sunday's meeting. Each of the subgroups are reporting out and with our findings and kind of some of our initial thoughts and takeaways. And so you'll see that happening in a very transparent and public space, because there are some, you know, implications. So for instance, even our group, we were looking at, for instance, what if it were to go all the way to Missouri as the natural boundary? What might that look like for other commissions? What could we propose, what we recommend other subgroups consider? So absolutely, you will hear and see that in real time at Sunday's meeting.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. And I would suggest that we move on.
Yeah, are there any are there any questions for the task force members from the attendees, from members of the public? Remember, if you're listening by phone, you can *6 and speak. Okay, hearing none. We would like to thank Jen Kaufman and Bobby King for the presentation. Is there someone trying to ask a question?
Nothing.
I'm sorry. I thought I heard someone. Okay. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Bobby, for your presentation. And we will put out, the commissioners will put out the information about the next meeting. Hopefully we can get it on the website with a little explanation what that meeting will be about and the date of the issuance of the, I guess, the draft redistricting maps. So thank you very much for the presentation and have a good evening. We will now turn to our new business for the evening. Is Mr. Jackson here representing Shellfish Tavern at 443 Kennedy Street Northwest?
I would love to hear the plan for Shellfish Tavern.
Yeah, I don't know if he was in the room before, but I don't hear him now. He said he would come and he has the link. Okay, Well, we have time because with respect to that, when I say time, to ask questions, because the process for any protest or anything like that, only reason to protest anyone is to make sure you extend the time so that you can make an agreement with whether it's a renewal or initial issuance of a alcohol license by ABRA. And so this is going to be a tavern, and it's a Class C license. And so I wanted to have Mr. Jackson here to explain. He worked for ABRA for many years, and so he's familiar with all the protocol. And he indicated that he would be here tonight, but we have plenty of time because the notice just came down late last month. And so we have until, I think, March, but I mean, even past March, I think, but I'd like to get something, have everyone get information about it, particularly since it's along Kennedy Street, and everything along Kennedy Street sparks discussion. Again, Mr. Jackson, are you here? Okay, not hearing him.
It sounds like he's not here. And Renee, I would, to your comment about everything along Kennedy Street sparks discussion. I'm gonna go ahead and say that we should support any small business that wants to establish themselves on that corridor, because it's difficult and it's hard, and we don't have a lot of authority to do anything beyond supporting them. But I think to the extent that there is a new restaurant or a new business that wants to open on that front, that I think we should be supportive of that.
Oh yeah, I think I'm totally with you. I just want to make sure that things are discussed up front. For example, with the license renewal for Northwest Liquors, we've never had any problem at all, but I put it in the newsletter when their renewal comes up, because we're supposed to give the notice.
Yeah.
And here with the new business, I think we should definitely, give the notice and discuss it, but no problem. I mean, hopefully we can get something maybe from Mr. Jackson even before the next meeting. All right, let's move on. Let me say that with the resolution on surplus and disposition at 5760 Georgia Avenue, that's the firehouse. I think from talking to Commissioner Bouquet, she was only able to make her suggestions this afternoon. And so I think I'll table that for now. I wanted to have it before the record closed at the DEMPED performance oversight hearing, because of the way that the lack of community outreach by DEMPED, but I will send it. We can vote on it during the budget hearing process. Okay, next, the resolution of ANC 4D regarding ANC 4D redistricting. Commissioner Israel, take it away.
All right, thank you, Chair Bowser. My fellow commissioners are aware of sort of what the ask is in this resolution, but a lot of folks from the public are not. So I'll just sort of walk through really quickly. And I'm not sure, Commissioner Noble, if it's possible to share the text of the resolution. If not, no worries. I can just sort of talk through it pretty quickly. But as was described just a few minutes ago from the task force redistricting presentation, we really have an opportunity here that comes once every 10 years to really reshape what ANC 4D looks like. And so they are going to be giving significance, you can call it great weight or otherwise, in terms of what we produce here tonight. And they got to wrap this up by April 3rd to come up with a final recommendation to send to the DC Council. So that's why this is so time sensitive. It's a very narrow.
Can you tell us sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but can you tell us?
Wait a second.
What is important to have this conversation? Like right now, in this time, why is it important to have this conversation?
Vice Chair Noble, can we have the speakers finish?
Yeah, I mean, right if you want, let me say this. This is going to be a brief presentation by Commissioner Israel, and it's my understanding they're going to have the draft maps out by February 27th, and then March 8th, people can comment on those drafts. So that will be before our next meeting. We can discuss after he gives this short presentation whether we should even weigh in or not, if that's your question, Commissioner Noble. But let him finish the short presentation on the proposed resolution. We haven't passed it yet.
Well, sure. I'm not sure there was a resolution in there. We're giving Commissioner Israel the floor. I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's a resolution.
So I put a lot of work into this resolution. I would appreciate just a few minutes to describe it so the general public understands.
Go ahead.
And then we can have Q&A. All right, thank you. So this resolution makes some recommendations to the Ward 4 ANC Redistricting Task Force, which within 6 weeks from now is going to come up with a final report. It's a very small, narrow window of time, which is why it's important that we opine on it now and not wait till April or March. If we wait till March or April, that train's already leaving the station. That's why it needs to be now, it needs to be at this meeting. And the recommendations that I've come up with are really twofold. Number one, increase the population size of ANC 4D so that we can have 8 single member districts and 8 commissioners. Right now we have 6. And I think as Commissioner Bouquet mentioned earlier tonight, there are issues with the commission of 6 or smaller. And a lot of members of the public might not be aware, under the DC code, we need to have a chair, we need to have a vice chair, we need to have a treasurer, we need to have a secretary. That's on top of our roles as individual commissioners, on top of family life, on top of our full-time jobs. It's a lot, okay? So if we were to expand geographically, that means we'd bring in more commissioners. More commissioners on ANC 4D means that we can rotate those 4 board positions more regularly. So right now, 4 out of the 6 ANC 4D commissioners every year are in one of these roles. If we expand to 8 single member districts, only 50% would be in those roles. So we have a little bit more flexibility and be able to rotate those positions. So at a very practical level for the operations of our ANC, I think that would be a positive thing. Some might disagree. That's my personal opinion. I think generally we would probably all agree with that. So if we're going to expand, and we are able to expand by 2 single member districts, because as the task force members stated, because of our population growth and the legal requirement that all single member districts be as close to 2,000 people as possible, plus or minus 100 people, Ward 4 needs to expand by anywhere from like 3 to 6 SMDs. So there's room there that has to happen. So the question is, where should that happen? I think 2 of those new SMDs should be incorporated within our boundaries. And then the second point that this resolution basically makes is, if we're going to go do that, where does it make the most logical sense, geographically speaking, for ANC 4D to incorporate new areas so that we expand from 6 SMDs to 8 SMDs? And if we're able to present my resolution, I'd love to show some maps I've incorporated in the text of the resolution. I did archival research to look at the historic maps of ANC 4D going back to the 1970s, through the 80s, through the 90s, to the 2000s, so we could see what did the borders look like historically to inform us now. And back in the day, Ward 4 included the Armed Forces Retirement Home. It included, going to the 70s, it went as far south as Upshur Street. Then it moved up to Webster Street. Then it moved up to Buchanan Street. So the borders have changed over time. In my opinion, the way that we should redo the borders for ANC 4D is to extend the northern border from Longfellow Street to Missouri Avenue. Missouri Avenue is a major roadway, It, as was mentioned earlier, the term natural border makes a lot of sense because there's a part of Brightwood Park, about 1,500 residents or so, who actually are residents of ANC 4B, which goes all the way up to Tacoma. And as Commissioner Linshow can attest to, since he lives right in that area, there are a whole host of issues that impact those residents that would makes more sense for them to be residents of our commission instead of ANC 4B. On the public safety side with the Kennedy Street corridor, with regard to Truesdale Elementary, their school zone extends upward to Missouri and Georgia. And as we all know, this is my other resolution we're going to get to later, Truesdale is going to be modernized and a lot of students might be displaced for a while. So it makes sense to have that geographic area incorporated into ANC 40's borders. And then the southern border, we should, in my opinion, expand it along Buchanan Street from Georgia Avenue to the Rock Creek Cemetery. It's a clean border. Right now, there's a gerrymandered border from ANC 4C. And as I'm sure Commissioner Bouquet and Commissioner Smith can attest to, there are residents that live on one side of Delafield Place that are residents of ANC 4C and one side that's in ANC 4D. There's a whole host of issues. And right now, the census tracts borders actually go along Buchanan Street. So it's just south of Sherman Circle. We could finally have all of Sherman Circle within ANC 4D. And if we were to do that, the math does work out where we could have 8 single-member districts. And so the last part I would just mention as part of this resolution is that in terms of equity, which is a factor here, I did do an analysis of the racial demographics that would how that would change from the current borders of ANC 4D to the slightly larger expansion of ANC 4D. And basically, it's almost the same. You know, right now, we're 49.4% Black, African-American in 4D, 20.9% white, 26.8% Hispanic, 10.7% 2 or more races, et cetera, et cetera. The only real changes is that the white population actually goes down 0.3% with these new borders, and the Black population actually increases by 0.5%. So we'd actually have a larger majority population of color than we do now. But it's very small on the margins. So on that front, I just want to make that known. I actually did look at the census data on that because that's really important. And secondly, on the equity side, it's of my belief that all of the ANC commissions, as closely as possible, and the math does work, should be sized between 7 to 8 single-member districts. Right now, we have us at 6, we have ANC 4C at 10, we have 4B at 9. It just seems, for consistency's sake, you know, we all have great weight as commissions. We should all be similarly sized. The last thing I'll mention on a practical level is our budget is based on our population. So if we have more people in our borders, we get more money. We can use the money for grants and all these other things. So that's the justification for it. That's sort of the general explanation. I think it is very important. It's really important because this is going to have impacts for 10 years, and we have extremely narrow window to pass a resolution like that.
Okay, Commissioner, let me stop you there. And so do you make a motion that this resolution be accepted?
Yes, I make a motion that we accept this resolution.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Linshow. It's been moved and seconded. The requested passage of this resolution. Now it's open for discussion. Please make your points, but please make them brief because we are past 8:30 at this point. Are there any comments from commissioners before I move to our attendees?
Chair Bowser, really quick, I think we have lost
Yes.
Commissioner Smith.
Oh, we lost him?
I want to
when,
put that out there. I think he's no longer here, so it's just.
when did we lose him?
I don't know.
Okay, go ahead.
No, that's
I didn't notice.
And Zach, sorry, Commissioner Israel, as you were doing your research, how did you engage with the other ANCs, or did you engage with the other ANCs?
Good question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Great question. Yes, I did. There's only 2 commissioners whose current SMDs would be impacted by this decision, 4B05 and 4C09. The commissioner from 4B05, Graham Button, is fully supportive of this. In fact, he lives in the part of 4B that's south of Missouri Avenue. So he's completely supportive of this. He told me that directly over the phone. We have his support. The commissioner from 4C09, Commissioner Alan Whaler, he had issues with the process that the task force is conducting itself in, not necessarily what we're opining on today. So he does not live in the area north of Buchanan Street that would be incorporated into 4D. Just for the record, he lives on Webster Street, from my understanding. But I did talk to them several weeks ago to get their opinion on it.
Okay, any other questions from Commissioner? Did you have a follow-up, Commissioner Bouquet? Okay, any other questions from commissioners?
Chair Bowser,
Yes,
can I just add a little bit
Yes,
to
please.
that? 4B05, where Commissioner Button now lives, he wasn't elected until June last year, so they did not have an ANC commissioner for 6 months because the previous commissioner ran against Janice for Ward 4. And then so there was 1,500 residents, as Commissioner Israel said, that pretty much adopted me as their commissioner, not their 4B counterpart, everyone south of Missouri. And that is not because I am a great commissioner, but that is because Missouri Avenue is a natural border. You believe you share issues south of Missouri Avenue more than you do on the Silver Spring border, which 4B goes all the way up to. So I'm fully supported of the aspect of this resolution, which would make Missouri Avenue the border. I think that impacts you a little bit, Chair Bowser, as well, that you mentioned before. You have some weird border there on Missouri and Longfellow.
For me, I do have one block of Longfellow. I stop it on Missouri Avenue at the 300 block.
Right,
I have
the
the
400
300 to
block
the 400 block, and then I have one block, the 400 block of Longfellow. I do not have the 400 block of Missouri, so that must be 4B.
That was my point exactly. Thank you. And I also support a part of the resolution for Mr. Israel that I think the four of you who are still on the call here, you are the officers. You guys are doing way more work than I do as a non-officer, and to share that burden with two more commissioners, I think would be fantastic. And I also get that Commissioner Israel has spent quite a lot of time to figure out the southern border, so it would be approximately 16,000 residents in 4D total, which it would need to be. I don't have as strong opinions on the southern border, but I get that it has to be this way kind of for the math to work out. So it's don't let the perfect be the enemy of a good kind of situation. So I'm going to vote for the resolution because of that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir. Do we have any discussion from our residents, from our attendees about the boundaries of the expansion, the proposed expansion to support the proposed expansion of ANC 4D and the changes due to populations of the single member districts? Please speak now, unmute yourself. And if there's anyone that's attending by telephone, you may *6 and give your opinion or your question or your comment.
Chair Bowser, it looks like Aretha Chandler has her hand.
Oh, yes, I didn't see that. Oh, yes, Aretha, please unmute yourself and make your comment, Ms. Chandler.
I have a question. How would approval of the resolution impact the work of the committee who's determining the borders?
Go ahead, Commissioner Israel, quickly.
Yes, so great question. To the points that the task force members made at the presentation today, we will have, I think, significant influence on their decision, right? Because we are a commission and legally, they have to give it more weight than just one regular person, not to the detriment of those people, and they're entitled to their opinions. But I do know from the first task force meeting I attended, they are going to issue in their final report a response to our resolution. So at the very least, we will get something in writing, saying why they did or did not follow our resolution. But my hunch is that they're not going to be getting hundreds of different opinions on this. So the fact that we might be the only Ward 4 commission that actually passes a resolution on this, I think they will very, very seriously consider what we have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions or comments from our attendees, our residents?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Jackson.
Okay, so the other commissioners didn't have any other proposals. You just, the one proposal came out of the redistricting.
The other commissioners across the Ward 4?
No, just you all today, just you all.
Well, you know, for me, I do think we need to even up the single member districts, because some are larger than others, and I think everyone should represent equal representation. That's one aspect of it. Everyone representing approximately the same number of residents. And that's why the ward redistricting, because Ward 6 had many, many more residents than other wards. And so they had to make those boundary shifts. So that was important to me. I mean, it's helpful to have more commissioners representing people, but that is not the most important thing to me. I try to do the best I can for the people I represent. And if I had totally different people, I try to do the best I can for that. But it is sometimes of a burden when only a few people are working on a project. It would be easier for more commissioners to work on that project, particularly since although I'm retired now, there were times when I was a commissioner, I was flying around the country for work, for hearings and such. So it does make a difference the more commissioners you have.
Well, yes, thank you for the work on that. I just don't see it going quite all that direction, but if you all in agreement with it, I don't see that so much as a natural line.
Well, we're not taking away anything from any other, in a sense, because there have to be, it's my understanding, because of the population growth, there have to be more single member districts created. And so if we don't get to, then ANC's 4B, C, and A are going to get even more. So they have 8, 9, and 11 or whatever, they're going to get more. So that it's not really taking it away from anyone else. Matthew, did you have a comment?
Right, so
I did, but I see another resident who had their hand up first.
Oh, what other resident? I didn't see them, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Matthew.
If any other resident who has a comment, please speak up. I'm sorry, I did not see you.
Was it Zilla Wesley? That's where I saw the hand. Didn't want to put
yeah, she already spoke.
Thank
she
you.
Already spoke.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. James. Go ahead. Go ahead, Matthew.
Great. Just a quick point of clarification. I think our office is going to try to stay mostly quiet on this stuff. We want the task force to feel empowered and without our influence. I just wanted to clarify a piece that Councilmember Silverman's office shared that I think illuminated a little bit of y'all's confusion about the Great Weight piece here. The task force is not a policy-making body. The legal requirement that the ANC be afforded great weight, therefore, isn't something that they are legally responding to in the same way that any district agency would. When it comes time for y'all, for the subcommittee at the council level to hear all of this feedback, your feedback is given great weight, just like it is with any other district agency, but the task force is not quite the same. So legally and specifically, y'all's resolution, your opinion won't be trampolined by their feedback, right? Like y'all are giving them feedback and they'll take that in the same way they will anybody else's feedback. Y'all's feedback will be trampolined via your great weight when you go and testify before, or when your resolution gets on the record before the subcommittee. Does that help clarify a little bit?
It does.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
does.
Matt, that's very helpful. And I'll note as well, in our resolution, we're not just asking the task force to do this, we're asking the subcommittee on redistricting and the Council of the District of Columbia. So this resolution encompasses our recommendation to all three entities. So to your point, when we get to the point, I guess in April, when it gets to the subcommittee, this resolution will be applicable to the subcommittee within the council.
Yeah. Hey, I've got to go. I'm going to jump. But I think I can assign this to Zach Israel or Renee.
You can make me host, Commissioner Noble.
Thank you, Commissioner Bouquet. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Noble. Do we still have a quorum? Yes. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Have a good evening. Yes. So
Thanks all.
are there any other comments from the residents? Please make your comment. And so we will, since we have a motion and seconded, we're having the discussion, and in a minute or two, we'd like to vote. Okay, hearing no comments, it's been moved and seconded. The resolution, passage of resolution of Advisory Neighborhood Commission 4D regarding ANC redistricting. Commissioners, all in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Or any commissioners abstaining? Okay, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Israel. I don't know who would disagree with the next one, but please very quickly talk about Truesdale School, because they're getting a raw deal.
Yes, and we want to avoid that raw deal.
And also, don't forget that we have people testify in March at the DCPS oversight hearing. Go ahead.
That's very important. Yes, thank you, Chair Bowser. So a lot of people in our community may not be aware, but Truesdale is slated to be completely modernized over the next couple of years, which is fantastic. Mayor Bowser put funding in her budget last year for FY22 to expedite that by a year. So over the next 12, 15 months is the planning phase, but then from fall of 2023 through fall of 2025, really for those 2 years, they're going to be constructing the new modernized buildings. And so when that happens at a DCPS school, the kids go to a swing space. And historically, those swing spaces have either been somewhere else on the property or in the vicinity, but certainly within the same ward. And Truesdale is in my SMD, but 5 of the 6 SMDs in our commission are within the in-district boundaries of Truesdale. So we all have constituents, the 4 of us, who attend Truesdale, and really can walk there within 10 to 12 minutes. I mean, it is a true neighborhood school. And so unfortunately, I was informed by Councilmember Lewis George's office that DCPS wants to have the swing space down at the old Shaw Middle School at Garnet Patterson on 10th and U Street down in Shaw. That's 2.5 miles from Truesdale. It's about a 15-20 minute drive, which means all of the kids would have to be bused down there on yellow buses, kids as little as 3. And so that's just not really acceptable. There's going to be a whole host of problems if that actually came to fruition. Number one, and I heard this from the family teacher organization and principal and other people at the school, is that there's anecdotal evidence when this has happened similarly at other schools, the student population will plunge, right? Because a bunch of parents are not going to feel comfortable putting their 3-year-old child on a school bus to be driven 2.5 miles into the city and then back. And they're going to leave Truesdale. They're going to go to other schools. The student population will plummet. A lot of teachers and staff might not want to stay at Truesdale because it's more convenient for them to get to the current location than 2.5 more miles into the city. That's going to impact their budget negatively for Truesdale since it's based on student population. And just the racial demographics of the 450 students at Truesdale, just for everyone's awareness, is that it's 68% Hispanic Latino, 25% Black, 7% white. This is an overwhelmingly majority student population of color whose families will be very much harmed if this were to happen. And it's just not acceptable. And from my understanding, DCPS has it almost seems like they've hidden this move purposefully so that there's less community opposition earlier on in the process, which, if that's true, is even more abysmal, in my opinion. And so fortunately, I was made aware of this. The community is aware of this. And we're going to work to put pressure on DCPS to include funding in the FY23 budget that Mayor Bowser comes out with on March 16th, which is why we need to pass this tonight, to include funding for a swing space for Truesdale right here in Ward 4, so they don't have to go 2.5 miles into Shaw. You know, there's a couple of options for where that swing space could be. It could be on the soccer field at Truesdale, but that might not be ideal because there's going to be construction right next to it for 2 years. There is a space at Whittier, another soccer field space, which is just about less than a mile north of Truesdale, where DCPS could construct a swing space there. That would be much more ideal than down in Shaw. And that could also be utilized by Whittier Elementary in Tacoma and LaSalle Bacchus Elementary, you know, who are also going to be modernized after Truesdale. So this is going to be a long-term investment, literally for the next decade. The estimates is that it would probably cost $5 to $10 million. It's a lot of money, but it's worth the investment so that we don't displace and kind of, you know, erode our student teacher population at Truesdale. So we're gonna pull all the stops to get this done. We're gonna fight as hard as we can. If you in the public are supportive of this swing space in Ward 4, there's going to be a public hearing on Wednesday, March 2nd for DCPS performance oversight. Anyone can sign up to testify for 3 minutes, and you could voice your opinion at that hearing. The more people that are voicing the same thing on this issue, the better. I asked Chairman Mendelson about this at his meeting a day or two ago, his public monthly thing, and he said that he feels that the swing space in Shaw is too far, and that he's going to be following up with DCPS. So it's of concern to the chairman of the council, who chairs the committee of the whole, which is overseeing DCPS. So we have that, but we can't take anything for granted. So if you care about this, please sign up to testify. If you can't show up on March 2nd, you can submit voicemail testimony at a phone number, which we'll post in the chat. You can just Google it, or you can just email your testimony. You don't have to do it on March 2nd if you're not available. And so that pretty much sums up what we're asking for. The only other thing I would mention in the resolution is that we want DCPS to regularly communicate with ANC 4D, the principal of Truesdale, and the family teacher organization regarding any and all updates related to the modernization and swing space. We want them to communicate clearly to everyone impacted about what's happening, because right now it hasn't really happened, and there's a bad track record of that not happening at other schools. So,
are you going to make a motion?
Yes. So I'll stop talking, and I will make a motion that we adopt this resolution. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a second for the resolution to allocate a reasonably distant swing space for Truesdale students during their modernization? Do we have a second?
I second it.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Bouquet. It's been moved and seconded, the resolution in support of a closer swing space for these young children. It's open for discussion. Please, anyone, if you have any comments or questions about the resolution, please ask your question now or make your comment now. Okay, hearing none, I failed to ask whether any commissioners have any question, but I know we discussed it at the business meeting. All right. Hearing, and if there's anybody on the phone that would like to unmute him or herself by pressing *6, please do so.
Chair Bowser, I'm sorry, there's a question in the chat.
Oh, there is? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, what are the benefits of modernization? Well, you know, unfortunately, Ward 4 schools have lagged with respect to renovation. It's a very old school. If you've been to, we used to have our public meetings at Truesdale. The bathrooms are horrific. One of the bathroom doors just doesn't even close. The one for disabled, and they don't have an elevator. And again, and they have more than one floor. And again, they're disabled students. You have to walk up the stairs, which was no problem for us, but it's a problem for a lot of people. So it's just not a modern school. We held our meetings at Washington Latin Public Charter School for a couple of years. Just think of 50 years or 60 years back. And I think it says something to students that the place that they're supposed to be educated has first-rate facilities. And it says something when you don't have those facilities. And I think LaSalle is on the list. I've been to LaSalle. The bathrooms, there's like crud around the sinks, because it's not that the cleaning crew have not cleaned them. It's just that it's so old you cannot get off that stuff. So it's always better for children. I think from the things that I've looked at, children feel like they're prized if they're studying in an environment that is it's a safe environment. Because for many of the schools, including Truesdale, Whittier had for years the roof was leaking. There are about three Ward 4 schools were just really left behind. And I think it is saying something to our children, particularly our children of color, that we don't have the best facilities. So I don't even have children, but I mean, education is so important.
And very, very well said, Chair Bowser. And the only other thing I'd add too is there's been, as our State Board of Education Representative Fraser O'Leary has told me personally and mentioned elsewhere, there's serious HVAC issues still with Truesdale. And we have kids going there during a pandemic, some who aren't vaccinated, who are under 5, and modernizing the school will, of course, address that as well.
And some of these windows in these schools don't even open. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. So any other comments? We're going to go and vote and get out of here. It has been moved and seconded that ANC 4D pass the resolution of Advisory Neighborhood Commission 4D urging DCPS to allocate FY 2023 funding to build a swing space for Truesdale Elementary School students in Ward 4. Commissioners, are you ready to vote? All in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. And don't forget, give us a call, give me a call. I have the schedule for the performance oversight hearing. And I think that it's really would be important for ANC 4D residents to just even make a minute testimony. And I've already sent it out to my single member district for that hearing, but hopefully we can have a lot of people from our area to make it. Thank you. Thank you everybody for attending. Really appreciate your patience and your participation. Our next public meeting is March 16th, and we are still virtual. An update came today from the Office of the ANCs that the virtual is extended to May, and they're also going to consider another bill that would extend the virtual meetings to September. I mean, there are advantages to virtual and there are advantages to in-person. And hopefully the transmission rate will go down and that people will be prudent because we do want to engage with our constituents more closely. But right now I'm into surviving because I'm what you'd call a senior. So anyway, so we're going to be virtual for the next couple months. That's just the bottom line. Thank you everybody for coming, and please attend the March meeting and contact us on any issue that you feel is important. Thank you. I'm closing this meeting out at 8:57 p.m. Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Don't forget the recording, Ariane.